I have shortly after 5:30, so we will call the meeting to order. I would like to welcome everyone this afternoon. We'll run till about 7 o'clock, and I'll make some introductions in just a minute. But first, let me say that I'm handicapped. I have to stand behind the mics tonight, I understand, so I can't move around quite as much as I'd like to. I do want to welcome all of you here tonight, and I would like to say that this is the process that we're going to follow tonight is this. We want to take an opportunity to share some information with you about the calendar proposals that the Board of Education is considering at this time, to have an opportunity to answer questions of anyone in the audience who may have questions, and to get feedback from you on this issue. We will have an opportunity for people at in the last part of the meeting to receive your comments. We also have feedback forms on the tables, and we'd encourage you to, if you're not comfortable or if you want to speak and fill out a form, we'd be glad to receive that from you. There's not a vote tonight or anything like that. I want to tell you that this is a part of an ongoing process of gathering information for the Board of Education, and I want to recognize the fact that we've got a number of school board members who are with us tonight, and at the risk of missing someone behind the cameraman, I would like to introduce our school board and ask them to stand. We have Ms. Gracie Porter, Chair of the School Board, Mr. Mark North, Vice Chair, Ms. Anna Shepard, Ms. Cheryl Mays, Dr. Joanne Brannon, Ms. Kay Simmons. Now, have I missed someone? Kay, you're sitting at the front of the room and the rest of them are at the back of the room. So. I would like to, I want to say again, talk a little bit about the process again. This has been discussed publicly a couple of times now. We did spend some time discussing calendar alternatives at the last school board meeting, and the school board decided to delay adoption of a calendar until the second meeting in August, which is August 24th. Am I right on the 23rd? I'm sorry. August 23rd on the calendar, to have ample opportunity to receive input from the community. Let me tell you up front, I think that there are some real advantages to a balanced calendar. However, I say that, and I also say at the same time, it will not work unless there's a good consensus. This has to be an agreement among teachers and principals and parents and community that it is something that'll work. If we don't have that agreement, if we don't come together with some common consensus around this issue, then it probably won't work. And so I'll ask you to tonight to reserve judgment. Don't fill out your papers yet. Listen to what we have to say. Listen to what questions come up, what issues arise, and then at the end of the meeting, please take an opportunity to give us your comments. There are some other pieces to the process that we'll put in place. The Board of Education raised a question at the last board meeting about one of the board members, and I can't remember which one it was, raised a question about are we planning to do a telephone survey? As you know, we do have the capacity to survey all of our parents on issues of importance like this, and we are considering that, and I think we're going to do that. For one thing, because my bosses back there said they'd like to see what that survey information looks like. What we would do with that, though, is wait till the end, close to the end of the process, wait till not long before the school board meeting, and there's a reason for that. we look at the media attention we have tonight. We have 4 TV stations here, I guess, tonight covering this issue, and there's a lot of interest in a change like this because it is a change. We've got to recognize that one of the real concerns about going to an alternative approach, an alternative calendar, is that it is a big change for a community. And we take very seriously trying to get the word out, trying to have it vetted, if you will, trying to have it discussed so that if we survey, or when we survey all of our parents, that the great majority of them have had an opportunity to really think about the issues. With the school board delaying until the end of August their decision, we'll take an opportunity to ask our principals to share this information at the beginning of the year meetings. We have a short video that you're going to see in a few minutes that tries to answer some of the questions about this issue. We'll have that on public TV, and of course we're getting great coverage tonight on this. But we will run that video. It will be, I think, on our website. So we really, it's very hard to communicate with the parents of 78,000 children. We expect 80,000 by the time school starts this year or sometime in September. It's really hard to share information and get feedback from that many people, but we are really interested in doing that. So that's and I think that our Board of Education, just because of their presence here tonight, is showing you that this is an issue that will be very thoughtfully considered. I think that's the only way to do something like this in our community. With that, I am going to click through a couple of slides here and show you some of the thinking that we have about a balanced calendar. And balanced is does not mean year-round. There are different definitions there. To some people it might be year-round, but you'll have an opportunity to look at the details of this calendar in a few minutes, and I see that there are copies of that on your tables also. There's some educational, and let me say that I've been a school superintendent since the late 1980s, and this is the 4th school system. There's not been a quick turnaround on that. I've been in several school systems for a number of years. In the last 2 school systems before this one, we had components of a balanced calendar in place. One of those school systems is Iredell Statesville Schools in North Carolina. That's a unified countywide district. And we had a feeder pattern of schools that had a balanced calendar. In Hamilton County, we had a couple of schools that tried it. And honestly, I'm not quite sure whether they're still doing that or not there. I think there are some problems with that, and when it's very complicated to have a set of schools in a district go to an alternative calendar when it's not the entire district. And even though in North Carolina particularly, we had it in place long enough to see some very good results, it was, I think it finally was eliminated from consideration in that school district. They no longer use it because of the difficulty of having 2 different calendars in one school system at the same time. So I would not propose that we have a trial, that we have some schools that do it and others that don't. We're a highly mobile community. Our children move from school to school. They move from cluster to cluster. We have a high mobility rate, so it just doesn't work to do it part one way and part another way. So any proposal that's made on calendar would be, from me, would be from the entire district. Some of the advantages that we see, there is a loss of learning over the summer. that loss does have an impact on all students if it's a particularly long vacation. Ours is pretty long now, but the longer, the more loss there is. We know that it's harder for children who come from low-income homes. That's over 70% of the students in our school system. It's also harder for children who are learning English, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that, and I'll tell you in my opinion what they are. We've got an expert who's going to talk in a little bit, but a lot of our economically disadvantaged students don't have opportunities for children in the summer to attend summer camps and other programs that are enriching programs. A lot of our children are latchkey children, and over the course of a long vacation, there is some regression. We do have to go back and reteach a lot of the stuff that's learned. For our English learner parents, we have a third of the English learners in the state of Tennessee here in metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. A lot of our children come from families who do not speak English, and you can imagine it's pretty easy to see that if you go home in the summer and you're at home for a long period of time, extended period of time, and you're not regularly communicating in English, then it's more difficult to retain the English, or there's some loss that occurs there. We find our academic standards now to be among the nation's highest. We have raised our standards in Tennessee, our academic standards, to what most people consider to be the second most stringent academic standards in the country. I personally believe that we need more time for instruction, and that takes us to a third part of the presentation, a third option on the calendar, which actually adds time in the school year for children to go to school, and actually adds time for teachers, more days, if you will. That one requires money. The first options are a traditional calendar, and then a calendar that's a balanced calendar that requires the same number of work days for teachers and for children. And we'll talk about those. But time is a variable that's very important to us. We don't have as long a school year as a lot of developed nations, and I think we need to consider that. I will tell a personal story about this. When I moved to Tennessee from North Carolina, I couldn't understand, this was back in 1996, I couldn't understand why the calendar was so much more difficult here until I really stopped to look at it. And it's very simple. We require 180 school days in Tennessee, and North Carolina requires 180 school days. In North Carolina, the state requirement is you've got to go to school a full day, a full 180 days, and superintendents like me are held very accountable for that. If you do an orientation day, it's got to be number 181. The exception that you can make to that is an exam schedule or a modified schedule for instructional purposes, but a longer calendar. And what I realized after really examining the calendars and putting them together was that that teachers in Tennessee work 10 days less a year than teachers in North Carolina. And so an extra 10 days allows teachers and principals and leaders to have the opportunity to really do the work that's required of them in addition to a full 180 days for students. And that's professional development time, but also time just to do report cards and to do the other work that's required of people in the profession. Fewer discipline issues were something that I saw in the last system that I represented. I'm not going to belabor this. I don't want to talk a lot more because we do have Dr. Alice Patterson, who is Associate Professor from the School of Education at Ch.3comp, who is with us tonight and asked to be on the agenda to share some research with you. And I'm not an expert, but I think Dr. Patterson is, so we'll call on her. Here she is.
Thank you, Dr. Register. I'd like to also thank Dr. Laura Hall for, let me make sure I get the mic. Is that better? Take it out? We just hold it? Is that better?
Yeah,
okay, that much better. Okay. Dr. Laura Hall for inviting me to be here with you tonight. Balanced calendar has been something that's been of an interest to me for quite some time. And I will tell you, I come from not only an educator's perspective, but I come from a parent's perspective, and I come from a practitioner's perspective. So let me begin just a little bit by giving you a little bit of history. In teaching at Ch.3comp.m4v University, I was working with some teachers in West Tennessee, and working with their schedules each summer became a little bit more difficult, because no longer were they available for summer classes through the middle of August. All of a sudden, they were going back to school a little bit earlier and a little bit earlier. And in that process, I realized they had moved to a balanced calendar. And I reflected back on my teaching experience here in Metro schools, in working in schools that we would consider to be very diverse, schools in those neighborhoods that Dr. Register just described to us, where our children came from neighborhoods where there was not a lot of opportunities for enrichment, not a lot of opportunities for camp, not a lot of opportunities for learning to continue. And all of a sudden, it's just kind of like that big light bulb that goes off. This is what my kids needed. Oh my goodness. And I began to read and I began to learn more and more about calendars and the importance of dividing our time equally across our school year. As you all know, we currently exist on what we call the agrarian calendar. The calendar that was established when education began in this country, so that children were in school from fall until spring. I'm going to date myself a little bit. But I remember being in school as an elementary student in a school that was a 1 through 12. We didn't have kindergarten in our schools in those days. A 1 through 12 school in a county contiguous to this, and the high school boys got out early because they had to go help bale hay. We don't live in those times any longer. So it's time for us to start looking at the next option. I want to follow up on a couple of the points that Dr. Register made. I want to first follow up on the summer learning loss. Our research tells us that an average student can lose as much as 1 to 3 months over the summer in learning. Now that doesn't sound like much, but if that child is entering the classroom 1 to 3 months behind where that child left the classroom in the spring, think of what has to be done to catch that child up in order to begin on target for that school year. This is where I'm going to be mama for a minute. My child lost a half a school year in reading between kindergarten and first grade. She had a lot of catch up to do. She didn't have the fries with the tots, rings, or anything to go with it. And she has continually worked in catching up. So those are the sort of things that we have to consider. over a period of 12 years, a child could lose as much as 36 weeks in learning. Do you realize that's one whole school year? Now that's a very drastic number, but those are some of the numbers the research suggests. When we talk about the benefits, one of the biggest benefits we find with a balanced calendar has to do with attendance, believe it or not. Not only student attendance, teacher attendance as well. Because we are working during, again, very even periods. And so that's an important thing for us to consider when we're looking at a balanced calendar. One of the other things I think is kind of interesting, it talks about family vacations. I've always found this one fascinating. In the fact that our family vacations, we have become accustomed to family vacations operating around school schedules. We go skiing in the winter at Christmas. We hit the beach spring break, that first warmness. And then we do a variety of different things through the summer. Have you ever thought about going to look at the leaves in Maine in the fall? Wow, that's something you can do with a balanced calendar. And I know that's an extreme kind of a comment to make, but that's on my personal bucket list. I would love to see and I wouldn't have to necessarily wait for retirement. But one of the big things that we know is that we do have the academic gains. And the academic gains come strictly because we do have well-rested, well-motivated teachers and students. I work with teachers throughout Middle Tennessee that are working on balanced calendars, and I can tell you they do not want to change from those. Parents do not want to change from those. Our biggest concern is the fear of the unknown. We have always done it this way, but ladies and gentlemen, we have more or less morphed into a balanced calendar. Look at the Middle Tennessee websites and look at their calendars. Look at their start dates. Look at their end dates. As a matter of fact, August the 11th, Metro's first day of school, is one of the latest start dates in this area. Most districts are starting the first week in August. August the 8th is one of the later dates. August the 11th was the latest I have found. And so we have more or less morphed into that. When I began working in this school district 35 years ago, it was standard tradition that teachers reported on the third Monday of August and students reported on that following Thursday. And look where we have moved up to. So it's not that much difference, but it is different. And it's different from what we've had in the past. It's different from what we know. But we also know if we continue to do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always gotten. And I don't think we in the Nashville area, particularly in the Nashville public schools, want to continue to do that. So I challenge you to think outside the clock. That's the motto for the National Association of Year-Round Education. And they work with the balance calendars on multi-tracks in 36 different states. And this is not about going to school year-round. It's about going to school in equal divisions. And if you look at it, you're looking at starting 1 week earlier and ending 1 week later, but giving opportunities. And there's work to be done. There's work to be done in terms of making sure that individuals are educated. But I look forward to seeing what the school district will do because I know they'll do a wonderful job and give our students a wonderful opportunity. Dr. Hoffman. Grab my cough balls.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. I appreciate the remarks. Thanks for coming this evening. We're going to start off with a video I want to show you, and you'll see some familiar faces in our video. Dr. Lanier, Miss Lanier will be in the video, and she was also on the calendar committee, and so thank you for coming. And Eric Huth is also, I don't know if he's here or not, but he's also on the video to talk about some remarks about the balanced calendar with Dr. Register.
Time is a variable that we need to use better. I feel like we cheat children out of time in Tennessee. I think we miss the boat in this country. Our students go to school less amount of time every year than students in a lot of the developed countries in the world. We want a full 180 days for students where teachers are with students all day long every day. Basically, that approach is for students to be in school for 9 weeks. When they start getting tired, they have a little bit of a break. We saw very positive results from that in the district in North Carolina where I implemented that several years ago. And we kept good data on that for several years, and we saw some very positive effects. Our behavior problems went down, our attendance rates went up, and our student achievement went up. Now those are 3 important factors, and we think the calendar had a lot to do with that. If they're a little bit behind, they have an opportunity for catch-up work. If they want to accelerate, if they want to do something different, they have an opportunity to do that we can provide. And then a fresh start after the intersession.
The possibility of adding some concentrated instruction to students with critical educational needs, we think, can make a big difference in the improvement of student achievement in the district. Some students really need it, others don't.
And giving them that, also providing them the opportunity to identify areas of difficulty that they need additional help for earlier in the school year and providing them with that help.
Students are still allowed summer, which means they still have the opportunity to be rejuvenated. Over a 10-week summer, after the first 3 or 4 weeks in one family vacation, the children are getting a little antsy themselves. They will still have a substantial summer. In order for English language learners to move to proficiency status in alignment with state assessment standards, we have to really focus on the content as much as language development. That benefit, it goes beyond the individual child. It's to the individual child, the individual school, the individual cluster, also to the district as a whole.
If you think about it, it just makes sense. If your family does not speak English, if you go to a summer vacation for a long period of time when you don't speak English, then you regress. It's something really important to consider in urban school systems. When you have a high percentage of children who are economically disadvantaged, a lot of those children don't have other opportunities in the summer for camps, for programs, for enrichment activities.
My first year after being here in Metro, I was so exhausted at the end of the school year that I truly thought I was ill. I thought something was wrong with me, something bad was wrong with me. And about mid-June, I realized it was because I was exhausted from trying to go back to the traditional schedule.
One of the problems we have, particularly in the spring, is that when the breaks are not evenly spaced out, the kids get a little bit rambunctious.
Students are just like teachers, or just like even adults in their day-to-day life. We need a break mentally, you know, just to give our bodies a rest, or, you know, just to have some stimulation outside of the norm.
As a teacher from the professional level, I really liked it for lots of reasons. Especially the children's motivation just seemed to be consistently higher. We as early childhood teachers were concerned that when the children came back after we had our first 2 weeks off, that we would be starting all over again at the beginning of school, and nothing could have been further from the truth. The children really felt more rejuvenated. They came back rejuvenated, as did the faculty, the staff.
The fact that your child can work for 9 weeks and then have a reward of a 2-week vacation, The ability for you to be more flexible in scheduling your family vacations and not just being relegated to summer, to June and July, is a benefit for you as well.
There were some parents and there were some teachers who were very much against it. In the beginning, things were brought up like, how will the high school kids have summer jobs? And can we send our kids to camp? But the thing that we realized was that got adjusted by those entities.
The opportunity still exists to find the child care needs for your children, but the best benefit is your children will be able to work and then rejuvenate and rest for 2 weeks and then come back and work diligently again.
Tremendous investment in people is very important. We've got about 5,000 teachers in our school system, and some of the most important work that we can do is to provide high-quality professional development so that they can get better.
There are a lot of teachers who can use additional professional development to help them hone their crafts. With the new evaluation system, those 10 days will be there to provide additional help for them to improve their instructional skills so that they will perform well on the new evaluation system.
Also, it allows the district to provide ongoing professional development for hot button initiatives, things that the district are pursuing in an environment that does not take away from the instructional time of teachers having to leave the building.
The balanced calendar was in the past supported very well by teachers. Teachers still do approve of balanced calendar overall.
For parents, the first thing I would tell you is what is in the best interest of my child.
We are going to have to think more about the students and less about ourselves.
It's just different as much as anything. It's just a matter of adjusting to something that is different. The benefits that I saw for my own child and for the children that I worked with for those years were huge.
We've got a great opportunity to make this work, to make this successful, and we've got time for any concerns that we have to be addressed and to be resolved.
I think the balanced calendar will help us move away from the agrarian calendar, which was set years ago based upon having to reap crops, which we no longer have to do in metropolitan Nashville.
The Balanced Calendar Initiative is not something that's new. It's been taking place nationally for multiple years. There are other counties in Middle Tennessee that have been using a balanced calendar for several years, and the benefits are there.
I personally am really hopeful that we go to that calendar. I'm really hopeful.
My colleague and I, Larry Collier and I, we co-chaired the calendar committee along with parents, community members, teachers, and of course MNEA. And so together, we had our heads together, and we have proposed to you tonight, again, we'll have the two calendars. Larry will come up and he will present the two options for the balanced calendar.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Good evening. I've been working with the district calendar for I don't know how many years. Basically, my job has been in the past to make sure it complies with state requirements. So I'll spare you all the intricate details and just go over these two calendars. What you see in each of these slides is each grading period. So the first grading period for students begins in version 1 of the balanced calendar on July 25th. What this doesn't show is that teachers would report July 16th for their added professional development days that would be locally funded. August 2nd, well, I'll go here to July 26th. In the last 2 years, I believe, we have had a half day with students and then a day off. That is because we have so many students who show up on the first day of school that we haven't planned for, that require schedules, require books, require other information. And so having that next day off allows us to enter the schedules and get all of the things ready for those new students who show up. August 2nd in 2012 is an election day, so we've put in a professional development day there for our teachers. We still have 52 of our schools that serve as precincts where the community comes and votes. So it's much easier for that to flow very well if we do not have students in school. The first quarter would end here on July 28th. I'm sorry, September 28th. Then intersession would be the first week of October. October 1st through 5th. Fall break would then be the following week, with October 15th being the first day of the second quarter. Students would report back then. In November, the 6th is the presidential election in 2012. So that we've scheduled the parent conference day for that day. Then you have your Thanksgiving holidays, and the second quarter would end December 20th. Teachers would report the 21st for a PD day. The next 2 weeks would be the winter break, with everyone reporting back to begin the third period on January 7th. Now, if you've looked, you may see that the third grading period and all of these calendars have more days than the others. That is because we're trying to account for the eventuality of snow. Obviously, most of our snow days are going to occur after the winter holidays. So we put 47 instructional days in the third grading period to hopefully account for that. That grading period would then end on February 14th, with the 15th being a teacher professional development day. The 18th through the 22nd would be intersession. 25th through the 29th would be the official spring break. Students would report back on April 1st, with Memorial Day holiday on May 27th, and the last day of school for students would be May 30th. Okay, that's version 1. That's a total of 180 actual student days in school. The only thing that would change that would be inclement weather. And this calendar would have 10 snow days or inclement weather days built in. Version 2 does not include the 10 locally funded professional development days, and it does not include a full week of intersession in October. What we wanted to do was look at starting school in August, which we did, August 1st, but we couldn't have the 2 weeks of intersession / fall break in October and still get in the required number of days before the winter holidays. So we shortened the intersession to the 8th, 9th, and 10th of October with, sorry about that, with the 2 days, Thursday and Friday, would be fall break. Then the second quarter, beginning October 15th, you still have the 6th for Parent Conference Day, the 6th of November. You see Thanksgiving holidays. We would end the semester on December 19th with the teacher planning day on the 20th. Again, students will report back on January 7th. January 21st is Martin Luther King holiday. February 18th is President's Day, so we added, put a teacher planning day there, which we've had for several years now. The third grading period would end on March 14th. The 15th would be a teacher planning day, and then the 18th through 22nd would be a full week of intercession. The following week would be spring break. April 1st begins the fourth grading period, and the end of the school year would be April 24th on Friday. That's a very quick overview, and I'm sure you probably have questions later. Dr. Hall.
Thank you, Larry. As you know, you might not know, we have been hearing from the community via Facebook, telephone calls, emails. So now it's our time to hear from you. And the procedure is that we'd like for you to come to the microphone, state your name, please, and we will give you, I think it's 3 minutes. And we have a timer over here, and we'll start like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you use this microphone? Can
Yes.
everyone hear me? Hi, I'm Laquita Martin. I am a graduate of Metro Public Schools, have 2 degrees from Vanderbilt, and working on my 3rd. So I know you can get a good education in Metro schools. I have 2 comments. One is, when you talk about the lack of summer work, I think about looping classrooms. My son looped 1st and 2nd grade at Percy Priest. It was an excellent experience. The teachers were able to jump right in the 2nd grade from the 1st to the 2nd. They finished their curriculum early that year. They began 3rd grade work at the end of the 2nd grade because they finished 6 weeks early. And they also were able to do summer work because the teacher knew what these children could do, and she gave them summer work to do, and it was very effective. I have a Hume Fogg student who has been working diligently on his summer work. Has a lot of it to do. So I think the fact that you think these children don't do anything this summer, there are ways of doing it. One of the concerns I have, though, and this goes back to Mrs. Patterson's comment about a bucket list. For the past 5 summers, and actually up and before the last 5 summers, my son has gone to a summer camp in North Carolina, Eagle's Nest. It is actually a school that has camp that has an outdoor academy program that's a semester school that my son attended this past spring. That school means a great deal to our family. My son has been enriched incredibly by that. Fortunately, our family has been able to pay for all of these benefits, but because it's so important to my family has established a scholarship fund at that camp to enable students to go to that facility. We chaired the parent campaign. So I think for me, as you say, there are all these disadvantaged families, 70%, I think you're missing out on the 30% of us that are dedicated to public schools that want to support facilities such as Dyer Academy and Dyer Observer, where my son is volunteering, where 40 of the kids are from Metro schools out of the 70 this summer at no cost. So I think there are opportunities out there without disenfranchising the families that really are involved and who want to have children experience things, particularly ours and our families, to be able to explore things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next. State your name, please. Thank you.
My name's Anne-Marie Farmer. I'm a parent of an incoming kindergartner, and I've actually really got 2 questions, 2 fact questions. One, just more, what does intercession look like? Do all kids go to intercession? Do some kids get a 2-week break? What happens in intercession? Just what is that? And then also with the funding, with the calendar that requires the $20 million additional dollars, is that anticipated additional funding, or is that $20 million from other programs moved to support the calendar?
Thanks. the requested funding, that calendar that adds 10 days to the school year is pending funding. That would require approval of additional funds from Metro Council to fund that. That's why what we've proposed to the Board of Education is a balanced calendar that does not increase the cost. That's spreading the 180 days out. And as an alternative, the calendar, the Cadillac version, if you will, which would add 10 days to the year and go to a full 180 days for students. We're a year ahead. I think everyone in here knows that we're talking about not this year, but next year. I hope everyone knows that. So all of the questions about intercession and how we would work that could not be answered at this time. We have a year to get ready for it. That's why I think it's wise that we approve a calendar so far in advance, even when it gives us problems with the weather and it's hard to adjust. But the intercession works like this. We have an opportunity for an extra week for enrichment. That intercession can be paid for with federal money. We can have school. We don't necessarily have school for every student. It would be a parent option. We would strongly encourage that extra week of school each 9 weeks for children who are behind. We would also encourage a variety of enrichment activities to be built during that time. And in response, I'm afraid we wouldn't find a North Carolina camp that was responsive to our calendar, but we might. We could talk to them. But for enrichment activities around here, we've got to realize that we're their best customer, and they do adjust, and that's proven to be true in a lot of places. So enrichment, we would over the course of this year try to build and promote those partnerships with programs like a YMCA program and other programs that are available in the community. The Title I could not fund an extra week of school for every student in the school system. That I don't think we could stretch Title I that far. But Title I can pay for extra time for teachers. It can pay for extra transportation. And we have a significant amount of federal money that could be available for use in funding the intersection. And then I think it's up to us to make best use of that time with a year's planning time going into it. Other questions?
So we have contact with the YMCA and certain daycares around, and they're willing to adjust their calendar to suit ours. Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Kelly. My son, Matthew, is going to JT Moore next year, and I'm opposed to the balanced calendar proposal. Specifically, the estimated $20 million to institute the balanced calendar would be better served by making sure that each classroom is set up with state-of-the-art technology. Our kids need the appropriate technology to keep up with the world and compete in the 21st century. Having said that, I do feel that in order to keep up with the rest of the world, we need to extend the teaching day. There's not enough time for teachers to effectively teach all the standards that are required. Breaking down my son's day last year, the teacher only had 4 to 4.5 effective hours to teach. It seems to me that if we extended the school day from 8 to 5, for example, we would be able to extend lunch times to 45 minutes, which would allow the children time to eat without rushing and have a little recess before returning to the classroom. It would also give the teachers time, extra time as well, to do the stuff that teachers do. We also would be able to fit in 2 15-minute breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. These breaks could be used for additional individual study time, doing homework, reading, recess, whatever the teacher deems necessary on the days. This leaves us 7.5 hours where we could actually have the teachers teach. Can you imagine how much more could be accomplished? The basis for instituting a calendar change should be based on propelling the students forward. It should not be based upon some of the reasons cited in the video presented today. $20 million should be focused on a higher quality of education for all the students. It is the school's responsibility to provide the education. It is the parents' responsibility to make sure that their children keep up with the standards. I did some research on the calendars that Dr. Registered instituted in Tennessee and in North Carolina, and it doesn't look like any of the calendars we're looking at right now. An important issue such as this needs to be addressed and voted on while school is in session, and the parents are more likely to be aware of the proposed initiatives. The balanced calendar was voted down a few years ago, and having this issue proposed in the summer makes it seem as if you are trying to institute policy change without involving the parents at all, and this is unacceptable. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Don't forget there are 2 calendars, one with the PD for 10 days and one without. Next, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eli Orland. I'm Laquita Martin's son. I'm a volunteer at Dyer University. I volunteer for the summer camp, and I'm also I was a volunteer at Camp Invention. This has taken up 4 years of my summertime. I can assure you that these are summer camps that promote academic interests as well as stimulate critical thinking. As a high school student, I have attended, I've volunteered and been a counselor at camps aimed for 5th and 6th graders, and I've actually learned just as much as they have. Now, with intersessions, now a lot of funding, you said, would be going to intersessions, and I think that if we were able to keep the same school year, but take money from the intersessions and help promote scholarships for these camps and camps similar to this. Not only can we keep reducing summer loss to a bare minimum, we can help these students actually have fun and interactive ways of learning. And that, even though these are aimed for 5th and 6th graders, I, as a high school student, am learning just as much, and this could also promote volunteer opportunities for them as well.
Thank you. Next.
I just have a few questions. My name is Lee Hitchcock. I have a 2nd and a 4th grader starting those grades. One question is, how will we know, if we adopt a balanced calendar, how will we know that it's been effective? Is there a plan in place to measure that? And in addition, alongside with that question, I would hate to see, there wouldn't be a way to measure the effectiveness unless this was adopted for a long period of time. We're not going to see goals reached if we only do it for 1 year. So I'd like to know if it's adopted, how would we continue to have that calendar and make sure that goals were measured? And also, this is just a question for my own information. Could you explain the difference between an in-service day for teachers and a professional development day? I haven't been doing this very long, and I just don't know.
It's hard, I can't describe that. I think they mean the same thing. One of the reasons why research is so varied, why you don't see a real consistent set of research on this issue is because the bottom line is we want to improve student achievement in our school district. So what we'll be looking at is student achievement and the trend lines there and what we see. But there are many variables that come into play. It's extremely difficult to isolate one variable, like changing a calendar. We also are going to invest over the next few years very heavily in professional development for teachers. That has an impact on student achievement. I think that one way we can measure this is by looking at some of the short-term changes that we could see. For example, suspension and expulsion rate, behavioral issues, and we track that and keep a very good record of that now. And then another one that's in short-term responsive is attendance, and that's attendance of teachers and attendance of students. Those were two that we saw quick changes in the district where I was in North Carolina. That's a long time ago. That was but we saw a quick return on that. Student achievement is what we're really after, and that's success for all of our students. And it's really hard to measure that because hopefully we're going to be doing a lot of other things that will cause that student achievement to go up also. Other questions?
Hello, I'm Vanessa Stacy. I'm the parent of a third grader and also the outreach coordinator for our elementary school. There are a million tutoring enrichment programs out there for the low-income families because I work with a lot of them. The problem is getting parents to put their children in there. They're not going to participate. They won't sign the forms. They don't want them participating. They're not interested. I have a great kid. She's an A student. She doesn't need to be going to school year-round. By October last year, she got in the car and said, I'm about sick and tired of hearing about TCAPs. That, by the time she was taking TCAP practice tests, she started out at advanced and was bombing them a month before TCAPs. This is a good kid, a smart kid. The other kids, they cut down our recess to 15 minutes. We had 8 of the most rambunctious, crazy children, boys, in our class. You can't cut out recess. They have to go out and run around because nobody can learn. My daughter is in a great school. She's in a great school. But it's not, until you get parent responsibility and you fix the problems in the school, sending them to school longer is not going to help. Our teachers were finished. If they have to teach during intercession, they're not going to want us to teach during intercession. They're not going to be rested, as in your video. They just want to be done. I'm there almost every day, volunteering. I enjoy being there, but at some point, parents have to take some sort of responsibility. I work with my child for, kind of casually. We'll go over the capitals of the states in the summer, and I realize that a lot of parents out there aren't going to do it. But there are a lot of programs out there. There are a ton of programs. We deal mainly in Edge Hill. There are a ton of programs out there, and I can't get the parents of the children to want to get involved, to sign a form. We want to start a tutoring program. They won't do it. At some point, parents need to step up, and they need to be held responsible for their children's work. And I realize that maybe the balanced calendar will help, but I think the good kids, the 30%, they're frustrated, they're angry, they don't want to go to school anymore. My daughter didn't want to go to school anymore. She didn't want to, come about mid-March, she didn't want to come to school. This child had gotten 90% on all of her ThinkLink tests. In January, she dropped from 97% to 78 on a ThinkLink test. I mean, if I hadn't stepped in, she would have been a basic TCAP student. And I don't think you want your numbers going that way. I stepped in and I sent her to Vanderbilt, the Saturday Academy for young students. Made all the difference in the world. She had a whole new way of learning. And it's taught by a Metro teacher, the class that she was in. She had a whole new outlook on life. So,
thank you, your opinion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sydney Pritchard. I'm a Metro student. I'm going to 8th grade this year. I'm not going to say my school, but anyway. I was because I had a couple questions and a couple comments. One will be there if we did have the balanced calendar, because they said we'd go in not this year but next year. Would there be like a group of people that would help fix the bumps along the way, because it's not going to be a smooth process. No process of change is going to be a smooth process. But would there be a group of people that would help fix the bumps along the way, like that would take questions and concerns throughout the program, because it's most likely going to be a multi-year thing instead of just having it 1 year? And would that come out of the extra funding? And then also, what would happen to summer schools, whether it was mandatory or non-mandatory? Because at one point in time, it was a while back, when I was going to school, I went to a summer school and it wasn't mandatory. It was because I chose to go to help increase my reading ability. And so what would happen to the summer schools? And also, also regarding the intersection, I believe I mispronounced the word, but regarding that, at one point in time, I had been one of the earlier meetings about the calendar committee. Well, it wasn't one of the meetings, it was like at a PAC meeting, about whether or not during the intersession, one of the weeks out of it, that the time that the teachers would be there extra would be, it wouldn't be mandatory to the teachers, they could choose whether or not to be there, and also be the same for students. But I had a suggestion that if, for all the 70% of students that were not making it, if it would be mandatory for them, and the 30% that were, if it was opt out, opt in, but where it just wasn't basically where you could choose to go or not for the 70% that decided they didn't want to go, but they needed to be there, so.
Yeah, the issue of summer school, the idea of intersessions is that we don't wait until the end of the school year to give opportunities to make up that every 9 weeks when a student's in trouble, then there's an opportunity for an extra week there. One of the, someone mentioned earlier about tutoring, we spend several $1 million a year on something called supplemental educational services. That's a requirement of No Child Left Behind. That's private tutoring that's made available to students in Title I schools, low performing schools, some low performing schools, some Title I schools. And we would expect and look at the availability and recruit supplemental educational services to be provided during that intersession time, and hopefully make much more effective use of that money than what's currently being used in extended day or other times when, as you mentioned, when people don't take advantage of that. Again, we're the best customers of those supplemental service providers, and they would modify what they do to provide that service for our children who would need extra help, extra time during the school year. Summer school has for all the years that I've known it, has not been a positive in public schools. I think there's some other things that we're doing. I don't think summer school will ever look again like it has in the past in this school district. For one thing, we're starting a virtual program where you can get online work that's much, that we think will be much more effective than what it's been in the past. So, but the basic answer is, if we can prevent students from falling behind by having extra time built into the school year, we want to take advantage of
that. My name is Gabriel Diaz-Barriga, and I am a rising senior at HEMFOG. And so, I mean, if you can tell, I don't really have a dog in this fight because this doesn't really affect me directly. I will be ending my high school career with a regular schedule. Something I would just like to start by saying, something that's always been completely over my head and something that I've never really understood is the fact that everybody here and everybody involved in schools all want the same thing. We all want students to be successful, and that's common across the board. You would not be here if you weren't concerned about students being successful. Now, you can continue to throw money at this all day long, and I don't think that's the problem. I think if you use that money elsewhere, you could change the quality of the school rather than the quantity, and we would have more successful students. I'm a little disappointed that when we address this issue, we look at both parents and teachers, and we're forgetting the biggest component of this is students and their opinions on this issue. I don't think students would be in favor of such a long school year because we're just, we're used to having a summer, we're used to having that break, and it's just, it's above my head. I don't understand how everyone here can want the same thing and that somehow we're still deliberating as to how that's done. And you know, I hear parents that say they want their child to have a good education. And you know, parents, there's a difference between want and there's a difference between want. I mean, do you want it? Like, are you willing to work every day to acquire it? I mean, I could say I want a nice house and I want a nice car, but until I actually, you know, work my butt off to get that nice house and get that nice car, I'm not actually wanting it. I mean, I could sit here and wish all day for things that I want, and that's, you know, that's easy to do. So, I mean, parents need to get involved. And it's just, it's as plain and simple as that. I mean, if the reality is, no matter how you adjust the schedule, students that want to be successful will be successful, regardless of what you do. If they want it, they will get it, and that's the truth. So, you know, use that money to encourage more want from students. Make them want to be successful. And not, you know, I want to be successful. I want to be successful. And that's the reality of it. And that's all.
There are two options. One is with money, the balance calendar, one is without. Okay, thank you. Listen here. Version 2.
Good evening. I'm not on.
It's on. It's on. Get closer.
I have to get very, very close. Okay. Can you all hear me? Yes. You could probably hear me better if I just step off, because I've got a loud mouth. Sure. Okay. Okay. My name is Erica Lanier, and I had several things in listening to the audience. First of all, just as she said, please keep in mind we've got two options. One that is going to, we're going to have a need for additional funding, but also there is one that we will not. Dr. Register talked about earlier sending out the phone tree to parents. Something else I may suggest that the gentleman just touched upon, let's poll our students as well. Let's ask them if they really feel that 2 weeks, which is what we're talking about, 10 days, is going to be a detriment to them. The other things that I wanted to touch on, because I didn't want them to be ignored, was the parental input and having this discussion in the summer. This discussion actually began last school year via the web, via PAC. For those of you all who do not know, the Directors Parents Advisory Council meetings, which are open to everyone. And also, we had the opportunity as parents to sit on the calendar committee. So our voices are being heard. And definitely, I would like to invite all of you all to come to our PAC meetings, because we don't know your concerns if you're not there. And we should not be vocal one time a school year, but 24/7. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was parental input and parents not wanting to step up to the plate. Please keep in mind that because you never see a child's parent does not mean that they do not care. There are many dynamics to where you will never see a parent. Myself personally, I use myself as an example. I'm my children's worst nightmare because I'm very visual in the schools. You will never see my husband. It's not that he doesn't care, because he's the one who makes sure that they're taken to school, that they're picked up, that they're fed, and even oftentimes when I'm at these parent meetings, is making sure that they're getting their homework. You typically will not see him because he's in law enforcement, and his hours will not permit him to be there. So, and there are other factors, but here's the thing. Even worst case scenario, if Johnny has no one who can be there for him to help him with his homework, or to advocate, or to get him to whatever tutelage program he needs, I go back to what made myself, and I think everyone in this room, a success story. It takes a village to raise a child. So if Johnny's failing, it's just as much my fault as it is his parents, who may or may not be in the picture. It's going to take community,
It's going to take parents, it's going to take MNPS, it's going to take council, it's going to take all of us to get together behind all of our children and realize if one child fails, we as a district fail.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Fields. I have about 5 dogs in this fight. I'm a teacher. I've taught ELL to 3rd and 4th grade split classes. I'm a parent. I have a child at Hume Fall, a child at East. Where's Eli? I have a son who's a very good friend of Eli. I had a son who was attended a camp where Eli was a counselor, so I'm very familiar with that family. There's just so many things that go on here that number of days is not going to solve all the issues. And I like the idea of a balanced calendar because by October, I'm so burned out. I need a break. I need a break to reset my classroom, to get ready for the next set of standards, to see where my kids are, where I need to remediate. I need all that. I'm a parent. I need to look to see where my own children are. I need to spend a little time with them. You know, I question the additional professional development. What's the goal and what's the intent of that? Because I see me losing 10 days of my summer with my family. And the lady who said that, you know, extending the day, the hours, I'm a parent, I'm a wife, I'm a church member, I'm a teacher, I'm a daughter. And I try to do all of those things passionately and with commitment. And I like the opportunity to choose how I spend my time and not somebody else continuing to add to my professional responsibilities, because that's what keeps happening to teachers. Also, the looping is a wonderful idea. When I taught 3rd and 4th grade ELL, I had my 3rd graders the next year, and I could jump right in with them. So for ELL, I think that's one of the things that we may want to consider.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it means you have the same students from one year to the next. They stay with the same teacher. Teaching a split was very difficult because I was teaching 2 grade levels, but like I said, when I got my 4th graders the next year, I had them in 3rd grade, and it was great. So the kids really did do well in that situation, and you already know the families, you already know their abilities, you already know what their weaknesses are, so that's a wonderful idea. We used to have a summer enrichment program at my school where the children could come for a month and get either reading or math enrichment. They were grouped by ability level. Our lower kids soared during the summer because their self-esteem went up, because they didn't feel like they were in the classroom with the high kids who were always going to raise their hand and always get the answer right and just kind of like overpower them. I think those kinds of programs are what work best for the kids who are struggling. And we opened it up to all kids, so some of our higher kids came to and actually made gains as well. We don't like to always wait to do those things in the summer, but I don't know how you work it into the middle of the year in just a week, because they lose so much over the year. They come in behind. If they come in 3 months behind or 2 months behind, and you start the school year with the standards you already have, and you're pushing for that, and then you stop and take a week to catch up, it really doesn't work in a week. You need more time in that. You need the time throughout the whole school year. Let me see what else. Is that my 3 minutes? Okay.
I'll try to answer part of that, and then I need to call on Larry to help me with the rest of it. If you'll look at the calendars of the options, the traditional calendar and the calendar with this balanced calendar with no additional days has students in school 176 days. The state law requires 180 days. We can do that because we add a half hour to each school day. We bank time is the language that's used there. The reason we cut that number from 180 to 176 is so that there is professional development time and work time for teachers to do the things that they have to do. The extra 10 days is 2 weeks employment for teachers spread out over the year.
My name is Tina Atkinson. Can y'all hear me? Oh, sorry. My name is Tina Atkinson, and I teach at Percy Priest Elementary School. I've been in the district for going on 14 years now. So I get nervous talking to adults, so you have to excuse my squeaky voice. I wanted to point out that with the balance calendar, I'm a big fan of the regular balance calendar. I actually had a question about the intercession. Would it be available for professional development for teachers as well, since not all of the teachers would be required to teach? I assume they would not be required. That we could offer professional development for each other during that time, as well as, I call them camps for kids. I think that what Orland said about having those educational experiences being enjoyable for children really draws them in. I mean, if you're going to summer art adventure camp, then you're excited and you're gonna go and you're gonna learn a whole lot of things and not even realize that you're learning about architecture and history and science and math and all these great things. So I think that making it optional for teachers to teach is a huge incentive, because those of us who want to will, and make it worthwhile. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that the balance calendar is kind of a swap. It's not any more time. It's taking your 10 days, your 10 weeks of summer minus 2, okay? That's 8. I'm an art teacher, remember, not a math teacher. And then you add in one of those 2 weeks in the fall and one of those 2 weeks in the spring. It's the exact same number of days. It's not extending the school year at all. It's not making anything longer. The only thing it does is it makes teachers look younger and happier and more energetic at the end of October and at the end of March, where if you've ever been in a faculty meeting or anything, the end of February, first week of March, those teachers look like they've been hit by trucks. I mean, they're exhausted. We're on the clock till 3:15, but we're in the building until 5:30, a lot of nights. So, you know, just.
Thanks for your comments, and see if I can get a response to everything you brought up. In the first place, teachers, whether it's the same calendar, the same number of work days, or if we add work days, she's talking and she's not listening to me. Great comment. Good comment. But the work during the intercession days would be optional. It would be we would be able to hire some teachers who wanted to work, but not require additional work of teachers during the intercessions, because all students wouldn't go that extra week each 9 weeks. Same with bus drivers. We would be able to offer extra work time, extra work days for bus drivers who wanted to do it, but for those who didn't, they wouldn't have to do that. Now, what was the other part of this? But I think that's mainly the answer there. Oh, I know what it was. So I've seen your art, I've seen your work, and what we would promote, what we would encourage over the next year is to find teachers like you who want to provide that enrichment. And there may be, and I would say not maybe, there would be a place for tuition-based enrichment programs too. The idea there, the key word is enrichment. What do you need for enrichment? Do you need to make up, be behind in algebra, or do you want an art camp, or do you want a music camp, or do you want other things that teachers would be available to provide here?
This is our last one.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Bonnie Pinkerton Holt, and I am also a product of Metro Public Schools. I also received my Bachelor of Science degree and my Master's of Business Administration degree from Bethel University. So, as my predecessor said, you can get a good education in public schools. However, my viewpoint may be just a bit different, and my viewpoint is directly towards the school board and Dr. Register, Mr. Collier. I appreciate your efforts, My children, I have a 3rd grader and a rising 5th grader. We are a part of the inner city. We are the 70% that everyone is talking about. However, no one is discussing it with us. I am also a part of that 30% who was at the school, who met with the teachers, who met with the students. I was on the PTO. I was in the PAC. And my question to you, and Dr. Carr, I don't know if you remember me, but when the reorganization came and the rebusing came, I followed the advice of the school board, and I chose to take my kids from a well-performing white school, and I went to my neighborhood school. My then 2nd grader, which I knew had problems reading, did not qualify for SES. He did not qualify for tutoring because they told me that he was above board. I knew this to be incorrect. So I fought it every step of the way, and I stayed with that school. I had teachers to come to me, I had the counselor to come to me and offer me free tutoring. Bonnie, she said, if you want him to learn, I will help him. If you agree to pick him up, he can stay. We'll just say he's doing something else. And so we did that. But the next year, this year that we just finished, I did not choose that option. I chose the busing option, and I took my children from the neighborhood that I grew up in, the neighborhood I choose to live in, not because of my income or my social standing, but this is where I choose to live. And I bused my children 15 miles to Harpeth Valley. And the first week of school, my 2nd grade teacher came to me. I'm sorry, he was in 1st grade, we went to university, and she said, baby, he needs help. And I cried because I said I knew it all along. Now my then 4th grader, she's a genius, and I have no problem with her. My question about, and I don't have a problem with the balanced school calendar, because what I see from being a product of public schools is you've already gone to a balanced calendar. When I was in school, we started school after Labor Day, and we got out in May. I'm sorry, but I think I did just fine. I married my high school sweetheart, and we're still together today. We graduated from the same high school. He chose not to go to college. He's an entrepreneur, and he also works to help take care of the family. Like Miss Lanier, you won't see him at the school, but you'll bet right now he's at home with the children. One question, please, and I'm sorry, I know I'm over my 3 minutes. We have SES, Supplemental Education Services, where you can get tutoring for your kids. But there are so many loopholes to follow that most of the time you don't qualify or the parents don't stick it out. We have after-school tutoring. We have free lunch, thank you, because that's what everybody keeps saying. But it's more than that. And instead of taking all of these extra efforts to offer tutoring, this class, and this opportunity, could we not table the calendar, because we're already there, and give us a year to work on using that money to help the students we have right now get to where we want them to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'm not going to address the SES that you just mentioned.
It's not just SES, all of the different programs.
But
there are several.
But sometimes there is a glitch in, I don't know what happened, but those students who are attending school who do qualify to receive services. So I'd like to see if you later want to find out what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think that's about time. It's about up. Dr. Register, you want to give closing remarks? Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. We'll be glad to get your question or comment later. We said we'd end this at 7, and we're going to do that. So let me encourage you to write any comments you